This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we have a great show lined up for you. We're going to start off with the Denver Nuggets, currently neck and neck with the Warriors in the Western Conference. We'll talk about can they win the Western Conference, both in the playoffs and in the regular season. Can they take that throne away from the Warriors? Warriors currently in first place by a half a game. Then we'll move to NBA free agency, kind of. Colin McSherry on the draft mailbag wanted us to talk about the Clippers, so we will talk about the Clippers rebuild, how they should rebuild, and how free agency will affect that. Then we'll jump into our Wet Boys of the Week. There were a stupid amount of candidates, and we have huge news in the Fantasy League. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with a segment that I'm extremely excited about. We're going to end on a high note. We're going to talk about Sekou Demboya versus Rui Hachimura, how they both pan out as prospects, who will be the better pro, who's the better prospect, who should be ranked higher on big boards, et cetera, et cetera. Before we jump into all that, though, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you haven't already, that is a place where you can go and get extra rewards for being a fan. You can support us on that site. You could be on a podcast for $10. We had good old John Woodson on last week, about an hour segment talking about sleepers in the NBA draft.
It's a good time.
And next week, we have a huge episode coming out. We're not going to spoil anything for that, but a huge episode coming out next week for patrons and for non-patrons, but especially for patreon.com.
I had forgot what next week was already.
Dave was leaning over like,
we only spent 20 minutes.
Next week?
We spent 20 minutes talking about it before we started recording, and I've already forgotten.
It's going to be a huge day for most people, I guess.
Yeah.
But check that out. Go to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Also, real quick, if you are listening on iTunes, rate us 5 stars over there. It helps us grow. And it's super easy to do. Really takes like 2 seconds. But anyways, let's jump into the Nuggets talk. I just like to say when I'm right, and I will say I was on
when Sean was right.
I was on this Nugget train from the start of the season. I knew Jokic was going to be top 3 in MVPs, top 5 right now. But hey, I mean, being that close for Nikola Jokic, you guys thought I was crazy for that hot take.
We did.
I was for being this close.
I'm giving you all credit.
It's way closer than my hot take. Remember, the Lakers were going to be in the Western Conference Finals, guys.
Yikes!
Might not even make the playoffs.
Jake did have the hot take of LeBron wouldn't be a top 5 MVP finisher, and that looks pretty decent right now.
It does.
What was yours?
I don't remember.
Neither do I. But right now, Nuggets are 42-19. They have pretty much the best home record in the NBA. They're 27-5. You could also make the argument for the Milwaukee Bucks, who are 25-5. Raptors are 27-6. But they have the most wins and tied for the most amount of losses. So I think they have the better winning percentage compared to the Bucks. They sit at 42-19. Golden State Warriors sit at 43-19. So we're talking about, can the Nuggets win the Western Conference? Did it click in your head what your hot take was?
I think it was OKC is going to beat the Warriors.
I don't think that was it.
No. Was it the Memphis thing?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, was it Memphis making the playoffs? And
was that the hot take? Or
I don't know. I feel like
that was it. And then he heel turned on it.
Yeah,
because you were all for Memphis, and then you did the classic WWE heel turn on Memphis.
I know I put him in the 8th seed.
We're breaking kayfabe here.
We'll have to revisit that podcast. But anyways, Warriors right now currently in first place in a half a game in front of the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets are 6-4 in the last 10. Warriors are 6-4 in the last 10. Both on losing streaks, but pretty much every top team in the Western Conference is. But let's talk about, can the Nuggets be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference? Like we already said, they have great home court advantage. They're pretty much 500 on the road. So looking at this, can they overcome the Warriors and become the number 1 seed in the Western Conference in the regular season? Then we'll talk about the postseason after that.
Yeah, I think they absolutely can. They've been holding steady. Absolutely great play as of late. I think the big thing is just you have so many tough games against your Western Conference opponents. They've got a short road trip where it's San Antonio, Lakers, Warriors, which don't take the Spurs lightly. I know they're falling out of the playoffs as we speak, but they're still a very good team. Obviously, the Lakers, you never know with LeBron and Warriors, so that's a tough stretch. And then thankfully they got the Eastern Conference trip of Boston, who's lost to literally everyone, the Wizards, the Knicks, and the Pacers, who Bojan hasn't been told that they're supposed to lose games yet. So they've got a couple of fun road trips coming up in the next 3 weeks. So I'm super excited, but I think they absolutely can. Their play is not, it's dependent on basically their outside shooting and Jokic ability to facilitate. And they've been doing excellent, and their guard play has been awesome as of late. Getting Isaiah Thomas, I know a lot of people are very like, does he deserve the minutes? Because he's trying to work his way off of that injury. But I absolutely think that by the end of the year, they have one of the best 3-guard setups in the league, and they absolutely have one of the best home court advantages. So going for that 1 seed, super important.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say for that next stretch of games, they do have 2 games against Golden State, which will be huge, but they are both on the road. They played earlier twice already, both in Denver. They won 198 and then got blown out the next game, 142-111. Both of those were in Denver. I will give Denver credit on that 142-111 game. They were without Gary Harris. They were without Jamal Murray. No, Murray was playing, but they were running out a lineup of Millsap, Torrey Craig, Jokic, Murray, and Beasley. So they didn't have a healthy Gary Harris, who's typically a guy who gets big minutes for them. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But that's probably the biggest thing that jumps out at me that is a red flag, because if you're going to try to overcome the Warriors, you got to beat them. And you look at the home court, like you say, and the away splits, they're not that great away, so it's going to be tough to go into the Oracle and get that win. But Ricky, do you see a path for the Nuggets to get the number 1 seed in the Western Conference?
I see a path for them to maybe get the number 1 seed, and the only way they're going to get the 1 seed is if the regular season Warriors because with the same thing, it's the Warriors every year, where the regular season, it's like, you know what, we're going to coast through, we're going to be at the top. Oh, now it's time to click it on, and then they click it on. Like, the only road bump that we've seen in their dynasty was the Rockets series last year. Chris Paul goes down, they then go on and win that series. But I can't help but look at how everything lays out right now and think the 1 seed, it's nice to have home court advantage. I know Dave, before the podcast, was throwing my way, you look at the numbers, and overall, the team that has home court advantage should win the series. But the thing that I look at is how the teams seed out right now, and to me, the most important thing is going to be where the Blazers end up in this. Because you think about it right now, if you are the 2 seed, and if I look over at how the seeding goes off, if you're the 2 seed, that means you're going up in the second round either against the 3 or the 6. Well, that 3 seed right now is Oklahoma City, and they have been a really good team. They're a team that many people are saying could be I'm going to say, sleeper in the playoff, like that non-top 2 team that, hey, they could make a run to the Western Conference Finals. Right. But then if you get the 1 seed, there's a possibility you can play the Rockets, where I wouldn't want to see either of those teams. If both of those end in the 3-4 range, you're going to be in a better situation than you would be with 2. So
but
to me, I don't think
the regular season.
I don't think it matters, because the regular season, eventually the Warriors are going to get it going. They're going to snap into playoff mode, and the Warriors will be the number 1 seed.
I disagree that it doesn't matter, because it does matter. Yes, obviously it matters for playoff seeding, but also to say that you were the Western Conference champions does matter to Denver. I mean, Denver is a team that's still rebuilding. They weren't in the playoffs last year. To go from outside of the playoffs to go to the number 1 seed, that's absolutely huge. And not only is that huge just for the team, it's also huge for Nikola Jokic's MVP case if they are able to, in the best conference, to come out over the Warriors, over the Thunder, over the Blazers, Rockets, et cetera, and win that conference. It's just huge for your team, it's huge for your history, and it's huge just to hang that up in the rafters. So I disagree that it's not important in the grand scheme of things, because obviously you're going to be worrying about playoff difficulties, but in the playoffs, it doesn't matter about your regular season record. It matters who shows up. So all you have to do is show up. It doesn't matter about the seed. Golden State showed that in 2007 when they went up against the number 1 seeded Dallas Mavericks and beat them. I mean, it doesn't matter what seed you are. It's always going to be difficult. You need to handle your task. So I think it's just important for the regular season that if they do win it, you can say, hey, we hung one over the Warriors. We got that. And even if we didn't win the NBA title, we still had a great, phenomenal season. And we could take that momentum into next season and build something great off of this.
I will agree to disagree. I will agree that, yes, if we're talking about a confidence boost for next year, coming into next year, yes, we can do it, then yeah, it's important. But wins and losses,
that when you beat LeBron and you were the number 1 seed and Derrick Rose was the MVP, that didn't mean shit to the Chicago Bulls?
Look at what happened in the playoffs. Look at what and that's another
But you
argument
don't
of
remember
the regular season does not matter. I remember it fondly.
I mean,
but
we have Chicago Bulls
but
fans,
I also
trying to build
do
that team
remember
with Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose already.
We came in and it was that same season of hey, you know what? We're gonna come in Eastern Conference Finals. The Bulls, we beat LeBron and the Heat 3 out of 4 times, and what happened in the playoffs? The Heat beat us. So for me, I feel like the best teams show up when the lights are the brightest.
Yes.
And with me, Warriors are my favorite. Thunder and Rockets will be tied for 2. Nuggets would be right after them.
But the point is that the Nuggets stand the best chance of winning if they have that home court throughout.
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
that's
invisible.
mathematically with the
They have one of the best home court records in the NBA, correct?
Yeah, 27-5.
27-5. That's insane. So giving them the best chance to win in the playoffs would be they need to have the number 1 seed in the playoffs for the Western Conference.
If they do get
there's no argument.
No,
to that.
if they do get the number 1 seed and everything else stays the same, they just flip with the Warriors and they play the Spurs, literally home court advantage will mean so much because they'll be going up against the Spurs. Spurs are 23-7 at home and 11-22 away.
Yeah.
So pretty much those 4 games at home, if you are going just by record, the 27-5 home Nuggets in 4 games against the Spurs, who are 11-22 on the road, should win all 4 of those games.
And that doesn't even hit the matchups. I mean, you're just going from a pure overview.
What do you mean?
You're not even hitting the matchups
statistically, how bad the Spurs are away and how good the Nuggets are at home.
Yep.
Those 4 games matter so much because if you do what you should do and take care of home court, you already are going on to the second round.
But I mean, even and here's another reason to put in my case why it really won't matter in the end of things is being the 2 seed, you'd still have home court advantage over the Thunder or the Rockets. And the Thunder and the Rockets, their road win-loss isn't that impressive. The only one that has an impressive win-loss is obviously the Warriors. And I know that, yes, getting that home field gives you all right, mathematically, home court, mathematically, we have the best chance. But the thing, and this is how home court works, obviously, Warriors win one of those first 2 games. All right, home court now flips over to the Warriors where it is going to be near impossible, in my mind, for the Nuggets to beat the Warriors in the playoffs, which would probably be Western Conference Finals, if they don't win those first 2 games. And they'd probably have to win those first 2 games and maybe a game in Golden State in order, in my mind, to beat the Warriors in the conference finals. That's why I would say it doesn't really matter in my mind whether they're 1 or 2.
But you're talking about conference finals Nuggets, which in itself is a hell of an achievement for a team that wasn't in the playoffs last year, that has an average age of they're super young. Their pick from last year hasn't even played yet in the NBA. I mean, we're talking about one of the most loaded young teams in the NBA, and we're talking about Western Conference Finals matchup. That's where you're at. You need to realize that that's an amazing win for them already. They're not trying to be the Clippers. They're not trying to get in the playoffs and get knocked out again. That ain't their game. They're not doing the Chris Paul shit. They're going in and they've got a chance to be a dynasty in the West because of the age, the way contracts line up. This is a team where this one playoff run,
and I do agree with you, dynasty in the
them.
West, they're at the beginning of it. They're at the beginning of this dynasty.
You look, and we're talking last week. I mean, if Kevin Durant leaves, that makes the Warriors intrinsically worse if he leaves. If Klay Thompson leaves, that makes them intrinsically worse. It's going to be easier next year for the Nuggets to win in the playoffs because then you have that playoff experience as well. I think the only player on their roster, I could be wrong, I think there's 2, and if I'm wrong, definitely correct me. Isaiah Thomas, who's not that big of a player in the scheme of their rotation.
Yeah, he's
not
still quite found his groove yet.
Yeah, he's still coming back off that injury. He's still going to take time, and even when he does, Monte Morris has been playing phenomenally. Jamal Murray's a great starter for them. I'll also give a shout out to Malik Beasley as well. I know he's more of a 2 guard. But Isaiah Thomas, who's not that huge of a rotation player, and Paul Millsap, who's a starter for them. But those are the only 2 players on their roster with playoff experience. I mean, there's no expectations for them to go in to win the NBA Finals. If you have the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, you beat the Warriors, that is such a huge mark for the Denver Nuggets to hit.
Well, and
I don't think it's going to be a failure of a season or anything like that if they lose in the playoffs.
Exactly.
It's just a young team that last year showed their youth, weren't able to get to the playoffs, but obviously showed their young talent and potential, and now we're finally taking that potential and doing something with it. It's just more about gaining experience, and doing that and making it into the playoffs and having home court advantage is absolutely huge. And if you go to the Western Conference Finals and you lose to the Warriors, that's nothing. It's not like
you
a
lost
failure.
To the best team in basketball. So you're the second best team in basketball.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean,
look at the Rockets last year. That's exactly what we're saying.
And no one's saying like that this season is a failure, but I
feel like
think
that's kind of the tone you're giving off.
No, I look
like
at
it's all
it
about
where
the playoffs or nothing.
No, it will. A, yes, it is, but B, it's your argument is coming more from a next year, which even if they're the 2 seed, I think this team comes into next year with not a chip on their shoulder, but a little bit of a confidence boost. Like, hey, you know what? We did already as the 2 seed last year exceed expectations. Like Sean was saying, like Jokic in top 3, and this team, I believe you said, like, oh, they'll finish top 3 in the West. And even at that, we were like, whoa, Sean, kind of pump your brakes a little bit. So, like, they've already exceeded expectations where at this point, they're playing with house money. Where it's like they could, with me, the only thing that could be a huge negative on this team is if they go in to either a series against the Clippers or the Spurs and lose that series, which I don't see happening. I see them at the very least winning the first round, either as the 1 or the 2, and then at the very least getting bounced out in the second round, only because they're going to be playing a Thunder team where Paul George has been insane this year, and you got 2 guys in him and Russ who have playoff experience, plus that team has more playoff experience. Yeah. Then you have the Rockets, who look at all the playoff experience they have, and they were literally the number 2 team in the West last year, would have been the number 1 if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. And then you're probably going to go on and play the Warriors, who's the best team in basketball.
Wait,
so
what did you say about the Rockets?
If they have playoff experience, they would have been
the 1. They were the number 1
one
seed last year.
No, they would have been they weren't the number 1 because they lost to the Warriors.
Like
so
in
the Warriors
they were
were
the number 2 team.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they would have.
But they
been
were the number 1 seed in the West.
Yeah, but they would have finished number 1 and beat the Warriors if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. I see them losing to one of those 2 teams in the second round.
It wasn't also that. It was the fact that they couldn't hit a shot in Game 7.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they only lost that game by 9, and they missed 27 straight 3-pointers.
It was the unluckiest team in NBA history.
Take a step in and then shoot.
Literally, I mean, like this was a team that had home court advantage, and it really didn't matter that much. Game 1 at home, they lost 119-106. Then they won 127-105. Then Golden State took the first game in Golden State, 126-85. Then Houston tied it up in Game 4, 95-92. Then Houston took the next game at home, 98-94. Then Golden State tied it to 3-3 at 115-186. And then Golden State obviously won Game 7. So it was pretty much Rockets. They went 2-2 on at home court in that series.
They should have.
It wasn't that important for them to have home court.
Like they should have won that series, but that's not the point. Like for me, getting back to the Nuggets, I think the big thing of it is going to be when they get to that second round.
Yeah, how
are you going to do either against the Rockets or the Thunder, depending on how things play out? But right now, 1 or 2, you're playing one of those 2 teams in the next round.
Well, right now, of course, because obviously,
right
the
now
Jazz
is what we can look at.
The Jazz are on a 3-game win streak. Rockets are on a 3-game win streak. I don't think any of us thought Portland was going to be this good. So they could always take a dip. But none of us had them in the playoffs. Yeah, no, 100%. So obviously things can shake out completely differently.
Absolutely.
Clippers and Spurs might not even be in the playoffs when we talk about this next, but they do have a nice 2.5 game cushion, at least for the Spurs over the Kings. Yep. So I think definitely playoff experience is going to play into factor. Clearly their worst matchup is Golden State, but if they do stay at 1 or 2 and the Warriors are just the next team or the team in front of them, they want to see them into the Western Conference Finals. So which team should they want to avoid at all costs then? Whether they're the number 1 or number 2, what's their like route to winning the Western Conference in the playoffs?
I mean, right now, I sort of agree with. I don't want to do it. I think the Blazers are an underrated team when it comes to playoff matchups, just because they play so damn big down low, and Nurkic is a monster. Now they added Kanter, so they've got someone who's extremely offensively gifted in Kanter who can come off the bench, give them instant points. And Nurkic is just so damn tough down in that low post.
And Nurkic will play with an edge, too, since they traded him.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I think the guard matchup is really intriguing there. You got Dame and CJ. We'll see what happens. Is this going to be a redemption year for them after their disappointing loss last year in the playoffs, getting swept out by the Pelicans? So I think they're a team that I would be afraid of going into the playoffs.
Well, but they won't be playing them for the first round.
Right.
So
I was just saying,
is their best route getting the number 1 seed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so then who should they be looking for in that first round matchup?
I mean, if it ends up being, are we just saying basically between Clippers, Spurs, and Kings?
Whoever could be the 8th seed. If you're saying they should be getting, they should, and they need to get the number 1 seed.
Like, what is their best opponent to make the finals, basically?
Well, no,
right?
yeah, pretty much. But first round, we'll start there.
Yeah, I would say give me the early going. Give me the. I don't want. Give me the Clippers. Give me the Clippers because they're a team where they're getting the best player out of their bench players. I know it's strategic, but out of Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell, and I think that those two guys, yes, they've cut their teeth. They're in the league for a bit. Obviously, Lou Will more than Montrezl, but it comes down to the fact that the pace and the matchups for the Nuggets, I think they absolutely would be able to run roughshod on them with their 3-point shooting. They don't have enough defenders. Like Pat Beverly can't be everywhere at once. So give me that matchup, and then I think honestly, it's gonna be dirty. What not Plumlee, because I love Plumlee. What Millsap's gonna be able to do with Danilo out there? Like I think that's a matchup that's gonna get absolutely abused. So I think that give me the Clippers. They're a deep team, yes, but the Nuggets have so much more talent, and the outside shooting is a massive difference maker. The spacing they are able to run with.
So then, let's say the 4-5 pans out. They play, the 4 or the 5 seed. Who should they be looking for there? Like, should a team be falling down there? A team be moving up? Which team is the best matchup in that range?
If I would be them, I would root for the Rockets to win, 100%.
You think that's going to give them the best matchup?
I do. I think James Harden is going to be either dying at that point because he's just played every minute of every possible game and putting up 50 a night, which is ridiculous. But can that keep going? And every single year in the playoffs, we watch it sort of putter out right at the end. So that's the team I would take in the second round because Chris Paul might not be healthy. Clint Capela might not be healthy. So now I'm looking at Austin Rivers and Nene getting minutes in the playoffs at a serious level.
Kenneth Faried,
he's been awesome, but still, it's just like it's not the same. So give me the team that's got an injury history, that is just known to run just a little bit short in the playoffs.
I weirdly think the Thunder might be the best matchup. I think from that, just because I know that Russ is extremely talented. Paul George has been on a next level for him. But you look at Portland and you look at Houston. Let's say they all are healthy.
Yeah.
Houston gives you the matchup of Harden, which obviously can sputter out, but
he also has the highest top end of anybody outside of
and
Golden
we're talking
State.
About Portland having the dangerous guard matchup.
Yeah.
Obviously, Houston has the better guards. And I think Clint Capela going up against Jokic, at least defensively for Jokic, is something that they can abuse. And we see how efficient Harden and Paul can be on the pick and roll using Capela. And I think Jokic defensively, although he's fantastic at reading passes, jumping lanes, anticipating, he is not a rim protector yet.
Yeah.
And Capela is so strong,
and that driving
and attacking.
Too.
I think that would be a very difficult matchup. Same reasons for why Nurkic gives that to them as well.
That's fair.
And also, just we're talking about pace and keeping it up. That can change for the Rockets, especially for them being experienced. They're extremely experienced. They've been here before, and with their ability to keep up the pace and them shooting, they can keep up with a tough altitude. But also, the altitude might hurt James Harden. And then obviously, they're going to face Golden State. You think no matter what in the Western Conference Finals? Right?
I don't see any way Golden State doesn't make it to the finals. It's just they're so damn good. 5 All-Stars, man. It's not fair.
Ricky, give me your ideal for the Nuggets run.
With me, it's going to sound crazy, but stick with me. Staying at the 2 seed will probably be better for the Nuggets moving forward, and this is why I say, number 1, give me the Spurs round 1. They're a team that even at now the Spurs would have to move up to 7. But give me that 7-2 with the Spurs because the Spurs are terrible on the road. I'd have home court advantage. I'm the best home court team right now in the West. I should be able to win that series. Then in number 2, another one that another team would have to do something. I say give me Portland in the second round because the Portland Trailblazers, Dave, they do this in the playoffs. They choke. They choke in the playoffs. And this is a team where if the Trailblazers, who are only a half game behind the Thunder, can move to that 3, give me that 2-3. I will take my chances with Portland. I'll let the Thunder and the Rockets beat each other up and then have to go through Golden State before then I possibly will most likely have to play the Warriors in the finals.
If we're talking about the Thunder, the reason why I think they are a good matchup for Denver is because if we're talking about choking, I mean, Russ last year was bad in the playoffs. Paul George was not great in the playoffs. They lost to the Jazz. And I know they had their games, they had their moments in the playoffs, but ultimately you lost to Donovan Mitchell, a rookie-led team. So, I mean, you look back at last year, what have you done for me lately in the playoffs? Russ and Paul George have not been great. They got bounced in the first round. And if we're talking about bigs matchup, Steven Adams is not a good offensive big. So that's one place right there automatically where I think that the Nuggets can win. He's a great defender, for sure, and they have great defending bigs. Him and Nerlens.
Nerlens has been amazing.
Yeah, are something that I think can give them problems. But also Jokic, I think, exceeds that defensive ability. He's a guy that's going to get his numbers no matter what, and he's going to be a guy who can do everything for you. He can rebound, obviously put up points. He can put up near 35 points a game, and then have a game where he's just like 4 points and then like 15 assists. So like he's a guy that can find a way to win, and I think that that's going to be something that I really like that Thunder matchup for them. They weren't able to win Utah last year enough to actually flip that series. The Thunder were, and I think that going into Denver will be even much harder for them. So I think the Thunder are a great matchup for them.
See, I'm on just the other side of I think that this year Paul George is playing a different level of basketball. Russ is kind of figuring out a different role, let's say, than he had last year. Kind of like taking, and it's weird to say this for us, a step back to Paul George and kind of saying like, hey, we're going to do whatever we want to win. Plus, I mean, if we're going to talk about playoff experiences last year, I don't think anything beats the Trailblazers where you came in with home court advantage and then got swept by the Pelicans. Like, that series was so bad. That's all Dave could talk about after it happened.
And it's something,
how
too,
bad it was.
That Portland has not gone as far as the Western Conference in years, I think.
The semifinals is as far as
but they've been a
made.
consistent playoff contender every year.
6 straight years for the playoffs.
And that's why
they've been Clipper-esque in their
if I'm the Nuggets,
success.
give me that in the second round over the Thunders and Rockets. And
but
then
they're a different team this year. Like, that's the thing.
I still think that if you're holding
last
the
year
Nuggets
against people and you want to say you want to attack Paul George and Russell Westbrook and say they underperformed last year.
Paul George throughout his career has been near great in the playoffs. Past 3 years,
can't take a last shot.
26.5 points per game,
but
7 boards, 4 assists, 1.7 steals, 42% from the field, 40% from three. Yeah. It's just clearly he has not done enough because the past 3 years that he has played great, he's been bounced in the first round.
But even look at the road splits where it's like out of the 3, the Rockets are 15 and 16, which isn't that far off from where Portland is, but they have the James Harden card. And the Thunder right now, out of the teams besides maybe the Clippers and the Warriors, have one of the better road records. So give me the team with the worst road record, who I'd have more confidence in because they don't have Paul George, they don't have Russ, they don't have James Harden. Give me that before I have to play the Warriors in the Western Conference.
They still have Dame, they have CJ, and there might be
playing amazingly.
And there might be an idea of, again, we haven't made it, and there might be that extra edge of, hey, let's not do what happened last year. I mean, like, maybe they don't have that talent to flip it.
They've played each other so far this year. The first one was decided by 1 point, and the second one by 3 points. Obviously, with the Nuggets winning both, but still.
I'll ask you this: then. If we had a series right now, Nuggets and Blazers, who would you take?
Nuggets.
Yeah, exactly.
I would too. If you guys said the same thing for the Thunder, I'd take the Nuggets too.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, the Blazers might be able to make it a 6-game series. They're still going to lose to the Nuggets. That's the best road. Give me the Spurs, give me the Blazers. Before I'll probably have to play the Warriors, but the best road would probably be playing the Thunder or the Rockets. But really, that's the only one where it's like, yeah, your best road is not playing the Warriors, but you're probably going to have to play the Warriors.
The Spurs are split with them right now. They got 2 more games coming up, one on Monday and one on April 3rd to wrap up the season, but they're split. So
also, so far, Denver's 3-0 against Oklahoma City.
But yet again, like I said with the whole Bulls thing, in the playoffs, I don't come into where, we beat them 3-4. That was the regular season. It's a new season now.
Yeah, but then also, let's look at the postseason for Paul George last year. The last game, he put up 5 points in 45 minutes. Let's look at Russell Westbrook. He lost that series for the Oklahoma City Thunder last year.
Could happen.
That's why I'm not afraid of them. Yes, Paul George is a different player this year so far, but it's also the regular season. So if you're going to do that for the Bulls and 8 years ago, we can do that for Paul George last year. final thoughts on the Nuggets. Can they win the Western Conference either in the regular season or postseason? Give me both answers.
I think regular season, yes, they absolutely can. The rest of their schedule, they've got a couple rough matchups with some back-to-back, but I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to lock it in. With the Warriors, there's just too many games where they don't turn it on. They literally got swept out of the state of Florida, losing to Orlando and the freaking Heat with a Dwayne Wade amazing three-point game winner. So give me the Nuggets in the regular season, but they will not make it through the Western Conference Finals.
Same thing. They have a chance to get the 1 seed. I don't think they will. They'll be the 2 seed.
So not quite the
They
same thing.
also have a chance to play in the Western Conference Finals, but Nuggets fans, don't hate me. They'll probably lose to the Thunder in the second round and then hope to rebound next year.
I believe counting this, Denver has 9 more home games and 11 more road games. Golden State has 10 and 10. That does worry me, especially looking at who they are playing on the road: San Antonio, Los Angeles, Golden State, Boston, Indiana, Golden State twice actually, Oklahoma, Houston, Portland, and Utah. It's going to be a tough stretch for Denver. However, I do also see the possibility of them going 9-0 at home at the rest of the season, playing New Orleans, Minnesota, Dallas, Indiana, Detroit, Washington, San Antonio, and Portland and Minnesota. I definitely see that as a possibility. So it's really going to come down to those 2 games against Golden State. Both are going to be primetime. Friday, March 8th, that's going to be at Golden State, 9:30 on ESPN, and Tuesday, April 2nd at Golden State, 9:30 on TNT. Both primetime games. It's going to be huge for Denver to win those games. If they win those games, they will be the number 1 seed. If they lose one of them, they will not. I think that's going to be pretty much what it comes down to. You need to at least win one of them to put yourself in contention. If you lose both, you get swept. You're not going to get the number 1 seed. So I will say it's close. I will lean towards no for Denver winning the regular season number 1 seed. But I do see them possibly winning the Western Conference. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to beat Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. But I do think that their hardest matchup, when this team is firing on all cylinders, I said this during our playoff predictions, was the Lakers, just because they didn't have a player, the Nuggets, who can turn it on to that next level like a LeBron James, but LeBron James hasn't been able to turn it on that level this whole season. So I think the playoff experience of a LeBron James would have been something that we wouldn't have been able to deal with. But outside of Golden State, I don't think any team has a player like that to turn it on. And the other thing with Golden State is they looked vulnerable last year with the Houston Rockets in Game 7, but also this is a team that has not been extremely healthy. So if Steph Curry is injured throughout any of those 7 games and they're able to take advantage of that, that will be absolutely huge. So I will not write off the fact that they can win in the regular season, and I also will not write off the fact of them winning in the postseason. But if I had to say, gun to my head, I'll say no to both, unfortunately, although I am the I guess, resident.
You're the Nuggets fan.
Closet fan. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Can the Nuggets win the Western Conference either in the regular season or postseason? I think they can, but will they? Probably not. But let us know down in the comments below.